goes back in time. He's like an assassin that goes back in time, and he goes back and he's scheduled to kill himself.
It's a multiverse kind of movie.
It's
right?
like that. Switch into her different lives and like take different times, all of time.
Time travel has to be the most fascinating of all the unknowns in our universe. Sure, you have to be a believer of some type to take any of this seriously, but some of the stories in this video will truly get you thinking and asking questions that no one has answers to. Is it possible to travel through time? That is something you must decide for yourself, as no time travel story can be verified conclusively. However, there are some credible stories of humans who may have journeyed across time. So buckle up, because this list will take you through some of the strangest time travel stories ever. The Moberly-Jourdain incident. In 1901, two professors from St. Hugh's College in Oxford, England, paid a visit to the Palace of Versailles. Versailles, of course, served as the French royal residence until the monarchy was overthrown in 1792. One of the last royals to dwell there, Marie Antoinette, was executed in 1793. So when Professors Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain were walking the grounds of the palace on that day in 1901, it's safe to say they didn't expect to see Marie Antoinette in the flesh, just chilling on a stool outside the Petit Trianon, a private retreat built for Antoinette by her husband Louis XVI. And yet there she was, sitting and drawing, entirely unaware that two women were staring at her, and all the other individuals dressed in 1780s period clothing who had come just as unexpectedly as Antoinette. When a tour guide approached Moberly and Jourdain, Antoinette and everyone else vanished. They wrote a book about their trip, an adventure, and the narrative became well known because of how realistic it appeared. These were two highly educated and well-respected ladies. They wouldn't make up a tale like that. So what exactly was it? Did they in fact go across time? It's one of the most exhaustively recorded, fascinating and well-known time travel stories. The Man from Taured. In 1954, a man attempting to clear customs at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan, encountered some difficulties with customs authorities. It wasn't because he forgot to report something on his customs form, but because he claimed to be from a nation that didn't exist, despite the fact that he possessed a passport and stamps to prove it. His passport was from Taured, a country he said was located between Spain and France. He grew enraged when customs authorities took out a map and inquired whether he meant Andorra. He acknowledged that although the location was accurate, Taured had been in existence for at least 1,000 years. He'd never heard of Andorra before. He was given a motel room for the night while police investigated what was going on. Despite the presence of armed guards outside his room, the individual had vanished by the next morning. His passport, which had been held at the airport's security office, was also missing. The enigma surrounding the man from Taured was never solved by the authorities. Victor Goddard's airfield time slip. In 1935, Air Marshal Sir Robert Victor Goddard was dispatched to assess an abandoned airstrip in Edinburgh. He took notice of the fact that it was in a state of disrepair. He climbed back into his plane and took off, but severe weather and poor visibility kept him from flying far. As a result, he turned around and returned to the airstrip to wait out the storm. But as he reached the landing strip, something unexpected happened. The clouds parted and sun shined brightly, and he noticed that the formerly deserted region was suddenly teeming with mechanics dressed in blue jumpsuits. On the tarmac there were 4 yellow planes, one of which he had never seen before. Bear in mind that this individual served as a pilot in the military. He was well versed in all of the aviation models available at the time. Goddard was completely bewildered. Was it his imagination? Was he having hallucinations? Was it all a dream? It couldn't possibly be true. But after another 4 years, he was sent back to the airfield. It had not been abandoned, but was now fully operational, replete with blue jumpsuit-clad mechanics and yellow planes. And there on the runway was the plane he couldn't recognize in 1935, a Miles Magister. The Magister was manufactured for the first time in 1938, 3 years after Goddard first saw it. Goddard's story is convincing because he wasn't even trying to travel through time. Something unexplainable just happened to him. Andrew Basiago, the chrononaut. Since 2004, Seattle attorney Andrew Basiago has claimed that when he was younger, perhaps at the age of 7, he participated in the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA project Pegasus, which focused on teleportation and time travel. He and a few others were picked at an early age because, according to legend, youngsters can adjust well to the stresses of travelling between the past, present and future. He travelled through time with his fellow chrononauts to sites such as the Gettysburg Address in 1863 and Ford's Theatre to witness President Lincoln's assassination. He was purportedly even captured in a photograph. During the course of the project, he claims to have observed 8 distinct time travel technologies, the most of which were based on engineering specs and sketches by Nikola Tesla. Andrew has encountered himself several times before and amazingly has never caused paradox. Others agree with him, claiming that the military department has possessed time travel capabilities for almost 40 years but has kept them hidden. Andrew Basiago campaigned for president in 2016, but we all know how that ended. Perhaps he could have employed time travel to influence the outcome. And Basiago is confident that he will be elected president or vice president soon. I have prior knowledge that not only will I run for president, but that during one of the elections, which would have to be between 2016 and 2028, because I'm not running beyond that, I will be either elected president or vice president. Time-travelling reporter. J. Bernard Hutton, a German reporter, and photographer Joachim Brandt were assigned a piece on the Hamburg shipyard in 1932. However, once there, the two men became terrified as bombs began to fall around them. They hurriedly fled after taking a few photos. No one at the publication believed their account, and their images revealed nothing unusual. Hutton was stunned 11 years later in 1943 when he read a report in an English newspaper about an Allied airstrike on Hamburg, with photos of the countryside he was extremely acquainted with. Did Hutton and Brandt leap forward in time somehow? 2 men into the past. In 1969, 2 men were having a meal in a little town in southwest Louisiana. They then got in their car and drove back to work along US Route 167, a state route that runs across much of the state. They noticed an old vehicle in the distance. As they came closer, they saw it was driving slowly and that the year 1940 was printed on its license plate. The 2 guys pulled up to the car and glanced inside to check if everything was all right. They were welcomed by a woman dressed in full 1940s regalia and a young kid, both of whom appeared perplexed and even scared. They signaled to the woman, telling her to pull over and that they would assist her. The 2 men halted a few yards in front of her as she prepared to pull over to the side of the road. When they turned back to make sure she was safely parked, the whole car had disappeared into thin air. The hipster time traveller. A photograph showing the 1941 reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia, Canada, went viral in the early 2010s for purportedly displaying a man who appeared a little too modern to have been shot in 1941. He does in fact resemble a time-travelling hipster. T-shirt with a graphic textured sweater, sunglasses, the works. The photo had not been altered in any way, and the unaltered version can be found in newspapers. So what exactly was going on? One website, however, provides a plethora of plausible reasons for the man's look. For instance, each item of clothing he is wearing may very well have been obtained in the year 1941. Others have also confirmed such facts. The final line is that it's never been fully discredited. Thus, the theory that this image depicts a guy from our time who travelled back in time to 1941 continues. What do you think? Montauk Project. At an Air Force base in Montauk, New York, at the eastern tip of Long Island, Preston Nichols claims some top-secret government time travel experiments took place. Nichols states in the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, that he retrieved suppressed memories of working on the project in the 1980s, and his allegations appear implausible. They experimented on youngsters, one of whom has psychic talents, and they established a time vortex to 1943. But not just any moment in 1943, the portal opened up onto the USS Eldridge, the subject of another famous alleged government project, the Philadelphia experiment. According to proponents of the Philadelphia experiment conspiracy theory, during World War II, the US undertook a series of tests to try to camouflage its battleships. They wanted that their ships be invisible and undetectable. They supposedly succeeded in October 1943, but there was a side effect. The Eldridge traveled back 10 minutes in time, which drove the crew insane. They were brainwashed afterwards and their memories of the entire incident were erased. The Philadelphia experiment, a film based on these supposed events, was released in 1984. And as it happens, the film awakened some repressed memories in one Al Bielek. Bielek began discussing these memories with the press, which drew Nichols' attention. The two got in touch and recounted a story about the Montauk project and the Philadelphia experiment together. Bielek had used the time vortex to travel from the USS Eldridge to Montauk. The scientist at Montauk pushed him back through to the Eldridge. It's tempting to dismiss Nichols and Bielek's assertions as pure science fiction, yet the story is so captivating, so detailed and improbable that you almost want it to be true. Leave your thoughts in the comments and let us know which of these accounts is most likely to be true.